Welcome in once again to the midweek edition of the Talkin Tide podcast. I'm Chase Goodbread, sports columnist with the Tuscaloosa News. I'm joined by BamaOnline.com senior analyst Travis Reier. The Talkin Tide podcast, of course, available to you wherever you like to get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts. You can get us live on Facebook and YouTube. And, of course, the Twitter feed is Talkin_Tide. You can get links to all the Talkin Tide podcasts right there on Twitter. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. Give us a follow on Twitter. We'd certainly appreciate it. Quickly, want to thank our sponsors. More on them later in the program. But Peterbrook Chocolatier of Tuscaloosa, North River Dental Associates, and DraftKings keep us afloat here on Talk Tide. To be in to look ahead a little bit at this Alabama-Austin Peay game. It's game 11, Travis. Typically not a competitive matchup for Alabama in that 11th game preceding the Iron Bowl. But we're going to talk about a few other things tonight as well. We'll get into some possible early NFL draft entries for Alabama. It's probably not too soon to start that discussion. Could have some opt-outs coming down the pike. Who knows? So we'll discuss that a little bit. Alabama basketball. We'll get into that as well. The Crimson Tide 3-0 on the young season. We'll take a look at a couple games around the SEC as well. But what about this Austin Peay matchup, Travis? I think personally that the SEC will go to a 9-game schedule. And when it does, I think we're going to see them schedule kind of like I guess the Big Ten does it, where all the non-cons are in September, and then once the Big Ten season starts, it's nothing but the Big Ten until the league championship game. I think this Week 11, Week 12 non-conference thing that the SEC has done for a long time, I think that's going to get squeezed out when they go to 9 games. What say you?
Yeah, something's going to have to go. And the way Alabama is scheduling already, right, for down the road doesn't speak to home and homes with, I guess, Power 5 or even Group of Fives, where South Florida is concerned coming up here in the very near future. Alabama going to travel to Tampa in a 2-for-1, I think it is, with the Bulls. But yeah, something's going to have to go, and it's going to be tough, man. You talk about the financial hit that a lot of these athletic departments are going to take, not just football programs, but athletic departments from games like this. It's going to be a big hit. There's no doubt about it. And you're right. It has become that weekend in the past that typically before rivalry weekend within the Southeastern Conference, you have this game. Last year was a little different, though. I think Arkansas was actually this weekend, and then Alabama had to turn right around and play Auburn. So if you wanted a little bit of a preview of what might be coming challenge-wise down the road, that may have been it. But yeah, it's going to be a new day. I think you're right. When the SEC ultimately goes to 9 games, which we both believe that'll be the case.
Yeah, a couple of SEC games coming at us this weekend, but a lot of non-conference games. UMass is playing. UAB is playing an SEC game this week. ETSU is playing an SEC team this week, Travis. So, and I think Western Kentucky as well. Western Kentucky's on a different level than the Austin Peays and the ETSUs, but non-conference game just the same. And you're right. It's going to be a big hit for these smaller schools financially. Some of them play multiple Power Fives in a season, not just one. And that's going to be a ton of revenue disappearing. Do you think whatever shape the Power 5/12 team playoff takes, do you see a subsidy situation where they get away from playing these smaller schools, but they figure out a way to cut them in a little bit on the profits so they can stay afloat, or do some of these football programs just kind of die on the vine?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't really know the answer. I wouldn't know where to begin to start with that. I guess for the FCSs, there will still be Group of Fives that need these kind of games. Like Austin Peay, for example, opened its season at Western Kentucky, but we both know that check from the Hilltoppers isn't nearly the same as what Austin Peay is going to get this week from Alabama. So, how it's able to manage that, programs like this are going to manage that. I guess there's also the basketball buy games that'll still be out there for a lot of these athletic departments. But again, it's not the same type of financial boon that these type of football games are. So, gonna have to get really resourceful and imaginative, I would think, even more so than they already have, in keeping some of these athletic departments and these football programs, because it costs a lot of money to play football, to get teams to where they need to go logistically, and everything that goes with it, the scholarships, all those type of things. So, I think
Travel.
there's a legitimate concern for football programs specifically.
And no doubt about it. Alabama again taking on Austin Peay. It's going to be an 11 a.m. kickoff at Bryant Denny Stadium Saturday. Broadcast on SEC Network Plus. Alabama looking to pick up win number 9 on the season. Should be able to do so against the Governors, Travis. The
Governors. Let's go Peay. 7-3, A-Sun football team, and just doing a little bit of preview work this week. Been a pretty impressive season. Got a offense that averages a little over 200 yards per game rushing and throws it for about 240. So some pretty nice balance. And they also have a defense with 12 interceptions on the season. Goodbread. That's a 12-3 edge over Alabama when it comes to picks.
What does that look like?
Yeah. What interceptions? Imagine that.
Big time receiver on that Austin Peay squad as well. I think this is Dre McCray, I guess it is.
Yeah. Not a big guy, but makes a lot of plays. They got 2 or 3 backs that they'll run at you. Look, Alabama should win the game decisively. That's not the point of all this. It's it's more about who do we see in this game, right? Once you get beyond the frontline players, and it is an Austin Peay team that has deep ties to the state of Alabama. I know we've talked about that. We've both written and talked about it this week. So there are some storylines, but for Alabama, it's get through it healthy, and let's see how many guys they can get to some spots on this team, right, in the game. And it's been a little while because they've been in the midst of such a grind here with the SEC schedule that it's a good opportunity to revisit some of these younger guys and next in line guys, and kind of give them a morale boost as much as anything else, that they are going to see some perhaps daylight at the end of the tunnel this week.
And one of the things, obviously, a big margin of victory opens the door for those backups to get in and see a lot of action. Another thing that opens it up, Travis, is that sometimes we see Nick Saban give a starter or two some rest in this game, and maybe not go if somebody's dinged up and maybe could play but isn't 100%. They'll pull those guys back sometimes and let them heal up, let them sit out, and just get ready for the Auburn game. Thinking back, one that comes to mind, they sat Josh Chapman the year they played Georgia Southern.
No cut blocks for Big Josh. Yeah.
Brought him back that next week against Auburn. And I know that's not the only example, but could be a day of rest for a starter or two, couldn't it?
Yeah, Nick Saban's already happy about this FCS opponent because it's not a triple option or academy style offense like Mercer last year, which you saw actually early in the season. Remember, Will Anderson took that cut block there. Had a little bit of a knee issue for a few weeks after that. There was question about whether or not he'd be able to go against Florida. And it's just a headache to try to deal with that offense in general when you're on a week-to-week sort of preparation situation. So, I'm with you. And I know he talked about some of those guys, or was asked about some of those guys on Wednesday evening. Jahmyr Gibbs, Eli Ricks, guys that didn't finish the game against Ole Miss last week. And those would make sense in terms of guys that you don't probably see a whole lot of this week.
Speaking of a couple of those guys, we'll move on quickly. Talk a little bit about what Alabama could be looking at for the 2023 NFL draft. Those draft decisions, they're being formulated right now. They won't be made final, of course, typically until late December, early January. I think the deadline for declarations for underclassmen is January 17th. Will Anderson, Bryce Young, Travis, those two have been people have. It's a foregone conclusion that those two are going to go. They're going to be first round picks, outstanding players, maybe high first round picks. Certainly Anderson, maybe both of them. And so those two will go. Beyond when you get past those two, what are some of the names that come to mind for you as in terms of the most likely underclassmen to maybe make that jump?
I would probably start with Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's understanding, like we both do, that the running back position isn't exactly valued like a lot of other positions these days in the National Football League. We've actually seen a little bit of a resurgence of the run game in the NFL, it seems like, this season. So maybe that helps Jahmyr. I think he's obviously got a decision to make. I think once you get probably more so on the defensive side of the ball, you
Branch,
start.
maybe.
Brian Branch is certainly a guy that you're getting into to go along with Will Anderson over there. And you've got the thing you got to take into consideration too is all these guys had the COVID year pretty much, right? That they could still use. So even in the case of some fourth year guys, there's some decisions to be made. And so, that kind of puts some other things up in the air. But I think once you get past Will and Bryce, in terms of certainty of first round picks, it kind of drops off, doesn't it?
It does. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and Brian Branch are both in my view. I think both those guys are probably second day players, second rounders or third rounders, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of scouts that I've caught up with here in the last month or so feel like Brian Branch probably going to fall into that range of maybe being the third, fifth best safety in the draft. And it certainly helps him that he's been able to show some versatility at Alabama and what he can do at a couple of different spots. But if you're the third best to the fifth best safety in the draft, typically you're going to go second day. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs, probably a second day guy as well, a little small to be a first round pick in the NFL, but he's kind of got that Alvin Kamara profile that NFL clubs are going to love. They're going to love what they see on tape with him when they're projecting him as somebody that could help out on third down out of the backfield as a receiver, etc. So I do think there's going to be a lot of excitement over Gibbs if he comes out, but like Branch, I think he's more of a day two guy as opposed to a day one guy.
Yeah, we talk about some of these guys being day two, maybe day three in terms of the selection process. I still think Alabama, potentially at least in this draft class, has a number of guys that will make opening day rosters next season. But yeah, just in terms of first round guys, there's only a couple there that you're looking at with a great deal of certainty. And then, as you said, I love Branch at the safety position. I think you're absolutely right about his versatility and the value that's going to have and what he's been able to show most recently, the pass breakup against Ole Miss to seal that game. He is usually a really solid tackler, and he can play within the box as needed in that slot corner position. But just as an every down safety, I could see him being a very attractive guy to a lot of teams.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up Eli Ricks's name as we close this conversation, and I know he was absent and MIA really for much of the season. He's only gotten in the mix here in the last few games or so, and he doesn't project as a high draft pick. I'm not suggesting he does. What I will tell you though is that he's going to have all those measurables that NFL clubs like in corners. The length, his arms are super long. I don't know what his arms are going to measure, but that's going to jump out. He's got the length. He can run well enough. He's got the physical profile to play corner in the NFL. And they're going to have a lot of questions about why he wasn't on the field sooner. And that's fine. But some of these guys, Travis, don't have the mentality like Nick Saban wants them to have.
Mm-hmm.
that if I'm a first or second rounder, maybe I'm coming out, and if I'm not, I'm coming back. A lot of these guys, and I don't know what Rick's mindset is, but a lot of them, if I'm getting drafted, I'm gone. That's kind of, right. And he's a guy that if that's his mindset, he could be gone too.
He could, and he is such a wild card because of, well, he had the injury at LSU. It cost him half a season. Then he doesn't get on the field as quickly as some people had anticipated. He was showing up in first round mocks, in the preseason. And that all had to do with, look, the guy I think had 6 interceptions in a season and a half at LSU. So there was production there. But
NFL has those tapes too.
Yeah, he to me is right now pretty much a guy you would trust in man coverage as much as anything, and that's huge, man. Because if you can play man, that's going to get you to the league. That's going to get you in some doors. I'll be interested to see exactly what he runs. I don't think it's going to be slow. I don't know if it's going to be 4.35 either. But like you said, as long as it's good enough based on his length and those other attributes, he should be fine. And you're right. Every guy is different too, in terms of, when they want to go, if they're not guys that are really all that interested in getting a degree, it's probably better to just sort of jump out there into the workforce.
Turning the page now quickly to Alabama basketball, Travis. We are kind of our debut in our 2022-23 Alabama basketball discussions here tonight. Alabama out of the gate 3-0 on the season. They just won a road game at South Alabama about 24 hours ago as we tape here on a Wednesday night. They beat USA 65-55. Brandon Miller, the freshman, another big game, 19 points, 8 rebounds. Noah Clowney, another newcomer, full of newcomers, this roster, 15 rebounds for Noah Clowney. Alabama out-rebounds South Alabama 63-40. And in all 3 of their games so far, Travis, against smaller teams, against teams that, Longwood, Liberty couldn't match up really physically, but nevertheless, Alabama's just been absolutely pounding the boards early. Speaks to some poor shooting, right? But it also speaks, I think, to the length and the hops that Nate Oates has put together for this team that's really an all-new look from last year.
Yeah, that length comes in handy on those long rebounds when you're not shooting the 3 particularly well, right? That's where you get a good bit of those offensive rebounds. Yeah, tip outs and just outright grabs. So, no, they've been very, very good on the defensive end. They've been very good on the glass. Those have been the 2 constants. They didn't shoot the 3 well against Longwood at all. They shot it much better against Liberty. And then they were a mixed bag against USA in that win Tuesday night. So it's not a complete team at this point, but it is showing you that it can overcome sort of its bread and butter staples, which is shooting the 3. They shot 30. They got 35 up in Mobile Tuesday night. So that's not changing anytime soon. They need to shoot free throws better than they did in that game. And look, we all know what's out on the horizon. We saw Michigan State beat Kentucky on Tuesday night. Michigan State on Thanksgiving night out in Portland awaits Alabama here in about a week or so. So that's one you already have it circled on your calendar. How this team hangs in and what could be the ultimate rock fight with a Tom Izzo team is something I'm really looking forward to.
You said that I knew that game was Thanksgiving week. Did you say it's actually Thanksgiving night?
From what I've seen here, it's Thanksgiving night with a 9:30 Central PM tip-off. So there you go. Have your little pecan pie, Goodbread.
I asked you. First thing that popped into my head is that going to interfere with my egg bowl?
Thursday night.
I have to go look.
November the 24th. Yeah, you're going to have egg bowl that night. You're going to have NFL that night. And you're going to have Izzo and Oates on Thanksgiving night.
And a belly full of turkey, no doubt about it.
Yes, you are.
Exciting. Yeah, Alabama did not shoot great against USA. 10 out of 35 from three-point range. As you noted, Travis, they weren't great from the free throw line either. They shot 11 of 20 from the line. Boy, Brandon Miller, though, doesn't he look good? I mean,
Yeah, he's a
it's
real deal.
early, and I spoke to some people last night about what I saw. I got a chance to cover the Alabama Liberty game this past Friday, and that was the game where they really shot it well. And Miller and Sears, I think, combined for I don't know how many 3-pointers it was, but they shot the lights out pretty good. Miller's so long, he can shoot over just about anybody. He's athletic. He can get after it defensively. We saw a little bit of that against South Alabama. I'm excited to see him against tougher competition like Michigan State, Travis. But boy, there sure does look like there's it's a really encouraging skill set for Brandon Miller for Nate Oates.
Yeah, 6'9", and what this guy can do with the basketball, he already looks like a high level pro. And I like his sort of demeanor and his makeup too. He was pretty poised through the first 2+ games. Then he got a little heated, a little fired up in the second half on Tuesday night at South Alabama. I like seeing some of that come out in him. But for the most part, again, just sort of his poise and the basketball maturity that he has on the court, and his willingness to share the basketball. Some of the most impressive things I've seen him do so far are find open shooters and then get them the basketball in a way in which it's teed up, it's ready to shoot, ready to go. And you mentioned Clowney; he was the hard hat winner on Tuesday night against USA with those 15 rebounds. Also had 3 blocks and a steal. So the young guy from South Carolina, Noah Clowney, he's been a very, very pleasant, I wouldn't say surprise because he was a 4-star coming out of high school, but relative to the other 3 signees in this most recent class, he wasn't the guy you were talking as much about.
No, he wasn't. I think Nate Oates is excited about the depth on this team too, compared to last year. Rylan Griffin can come in and give him a lot of defensive length as well. They put Liberty had a kid who averaged 25 last year. They put Namari Burnett on him and shut him down almost completely.
What about Javon Quinterly coming back as quickly as he did? Man, that was stunning. And I know there had been talk about it, but just to see him actually out there, after that knee injury back in March, that's pretty amazing.
It was, and he had a couple of shots not quite fall. He had a frustrating few minutes out there, I think, production wise. But you saw the quickness, you saw the
confidence is what I liked. He didn't appear to be timid or anything coming off that injury.
No, he didn't. That's for sure. And with him getting back and Darius Miles is about to be back. When Dom Welsh gets healthy, he's going to be taking a few minutes too, Travis. So it's going to be interesting to see who's getting minutes and who isn't, because there's going to be it's going to be tough to distribute those minutes once they get to where they feel like they're 10 deep.
Nate has said whoever's playing defense is going to get the minutes. He loves this situation. You're right. From the depth perspective, that's what he really loves, because he knows he can go 11, 12 deep and keep going if he's not getting what he wants first and foremost on the defensive end.
All right, the Talkin Tide podcast on the Pigskin Podcast Network. Moving on, I'm going to thank a couple of sponsors for you here really quickly. We're going to start by telling you all about North River Dental Associates and Dr. Jack Smalley with that great dental care you get from his fantastic dental hygienist right over there at 1100 Fairfax Park off of Watermelon Road, a super convenient location. On a routine cleaning, they're going to have you in and out the door in less than an hour typically. And of course, they can give you all kinds of dental care, from laser dentistry to endodontics, the popular teeth whitening services. You got to check those out. And of course, they're offering Botox and Juvederm treatments as well. Give Dr. Jack a call. It's 752-3506, or you can go online and make an appointment. That web address is northriverdentist.com. It is North River Dental Associates.
I'm going to tell you about Peterbrook Chocolatier out there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. That's right. The holiday season is here. talked about it on the last podcast, and I've devoured probably 2 bags worth of it in the time since. It's that peppermint bark that is back at
Quality
Peterbrook
control, Travis.
Chocolatier. Oh man, I've been checking it out, man, and it is AAA rated, no doubt about it. Good stuff. That peppermint bark this time of year, you cannot beat it. And of course, all the great inventory they have there for you. And if they don't have it, here's the thing: they can make it. If it's something you want in chocolate, they can do it at Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa.
Going to tell you finally about our corporate sponsor. That would be DraftKings. Make every play feel easy and exciting with the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. You just cannot beat it. Check this out as well. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code TPPN. That's the Pigskin Podcast Network acronym. And you'll get $200 free bets if your team wins on a $5 bet on any NFL game only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, that is promo code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Travis, really quickly, we'll zip down a couple of games in the SEC. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, quite a few non-conference games on the slate this particular weekend. But Georgia goes on the road to Kentucky, Tennessee on the road at South Carolina, Florida on the road at Vanderbilt. 3 games that are heavy chalk, all of them, in terms of favorites. But I don't know that any of those games are close. I am interested to see if South Carolina can hang a little bit with Tennessee at home. But if that one's a blowout, I think they're all blowouts.
What about Vanderbilt, though? Playing at home, coming off that win on the road at Kentucky, Goodbread.
Yeah.
Vandy can run the football a little bit. Florida struggled with that defensively. Florida looked really good in the win over South Carolina in Gainesville. So Vanderbilt Commodores get an SEC win. What's that?
We're going to get Mike Wright at quarterback again from the Commodores, I guess?
I would think so. He had a good game. Threw for over 180 last Saturday. Rushed for, over 100? Outplayed Will Levis. Everybody's first-round pick at quarterback, Will Levis.
Vanderbilt's mini Anthony Richardson, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that could come down to which quarterback has the most rushing yards in Nashville this week, more so than even passing yards, because we know Anthony can get it done with his feet too.
Vandy fans will be delirious if they knock off the Gators at home.
Well, and if you're a Florida fan, even though you just blew out South Carolina and Gainesville, I don't think you still trust that team.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think it's a game Florida probably should win, but Vandy feeling it a little bit right now.
It's going to do it for this edition of the Talkin Tide podcast. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check us out on Sunday night. Travis and I will recap Alabama's home game against Austin Peay. So for Travis Reier of BamaOnline.com, I'm Chase Goodbread of the Tuscaloosa News and Crimson Cover Television, and we will talk to you for the Sunday nighter right here on Talkin Tide.